But we have had to resort to IMF bailouts every now and then. And if you do the content analysis of what precipitated in those economic crises, one common element that is ever present is the issue of debt management. Unsustainable debt accumulation has always been a factor in the successive economic crises that we have had to suffer as a nation. So as a nation, we need to pause and reflect on what has been the problem that we constantly suffering from these debt overhangs that always results in economic crisis. Yes, the conversation had been had on various platforms and different fora, both in official circles and in informal spaces. But I mean, exploring the space, we realized that there is no, documented evidence of the issues in one place that you can say, okay, this is it. Someone has taken his time to put all the facts together for us to have a clear understanding of the issues. We have had to look at them in piecemeal. And so, as part of a project that we are implementing, economic governance platform known as the Citizens Action for Sustainable Debt Management in Ghana, that is supported by Open Society Foundation, we took it upon ourselves to undertake this study. And so we commissioned these distinguished experts to do this work for us. And the product of the work that they have done is what we are here to outdoor. So debt accumulation is fueled largely by financial need to fulfill revenue and expenditure gaps. However, political economy factors and parochial interests may also precipitate debt accumulation. Most nations incur or accumulate some amount of debt as part of their normal fiscal operations. However, the nature of debts incurred and the processes of their acquisition, their management, including resettlement and reporting or associated accountability, play important roles in determining the effectiveness and the sustainability of debt management. Ghana's own experiences on debt acquisition through borrowing and that of other countries clearly indicate that the choice of book runners that are appointed and how they are appointed, the timing of debt acquisitions, and the kind of lenders to borrow from, the agreed terms of debt acquired, and how such funds are applied are not always motivated by the best interest of the state. Besides borrowing, debts are also accumulated through unfavorable judicial judgments emanating from administrative and/or political decisions that may be made in error, that is unknowingly, or deliberately, that is knowingly, or out of outright blunders for varied reasons. Again, there are debts that arise from poor procurement decisions, unfavorable market conditions, as well as current depreciation and many other factors. Now, from this background, though a number of the gaps in debt management are well known and discussed in fiscal policy discourse in Ghana, the same is not well documented and coherently packaged to allow for effective CSO's advocacy to influence prudent debt management. That's the need for this technical inquiry to bridge the gap. So divided into three different but connected segments, each section of this study is intended to provide further insights premised on documented and synthesized evidence from both publicly available and generated data and information that can be used to influence reforms in debt management policy and practice. And this has become even more imperative in the current debt-laden economic context of Ghana. So the objectives of the study, we have one main objective, as I have indicated, to bring everything together in one place. But under these, we're one, to provide up-to-date and relevant data information that adequately describe and assesses the state of debt management in Ghana. Two, provide pragmatic recommendations to guide key economic decision making, and thirdly, to inform reforms in debt management policy and practice.
And the IMF had determined that given where our debt was and the associated obligations or implications, the traditional medicine they were recommending was not sufficient to bring us out of that sickness, right? So what was a traditional medicine? It was very simple. Anytime you go to the IMF, their prescription is not so difficult. Cut expenditure. The next variable is what? Raise revenue. The balance, we have not been able to manage it well. Essentially, that is what they call fiscal consolidation, right? So it's either revenue-based or expenditure-based or a mixture. And then the pace. The pace means that you choose the fiscal consolidation gradually or you front-load it. So in the more recent one, we call it front-loaded fiscal consolidation, where you want adjustment to happen within the shortest possible time rather than pacing it over a certain period of time. So we moved beyond what we call fiscal consolidation, and we needed to do debt treatment, right? And of course, to also put it within context that it wasn't the first time we were restructuring our debt. In fact, until then, Ghana had restructured its debt 6 times. So all that Bank of Ghana has been doing with all the salary they take, essentially, is what? Mopping up excess liquidity. What happened? The liquidity had been injected, and now they have to what? Mop it up. Because our diagnosis is that we had injected liquidity, but they didn't go to the productive sectors of the economy. Without corresponding production, you have more money chasing what? So if that is the diagnosis, then the direct way to solve that, since they don't have control over supply or production, where do they have control? Mopping up. So, but who needs the credit for business? Private sector needs the credit. I hope you understand that. So Bank of Ghana mops up that excess liquidity. It passes through another channel through fiscal recklessness. The liquidity finds its way into the system, not going to productive sectors, and Bank of Ghana is also what? So this is a cycle we have been doing. Okay. We can correct that. Not that we cannot correct that. To be able to do that, you need fiscal side to show leadership. Okay. This is what is lacking in Ghana. Without fiscal leadership, monetary policy will not be effective. It doesn't matter who you make the governor of Bank of Ghana, because the complementarity between fiscal and monetary, if you don't manage that very well, then what will happen is that we have to then deploy monetary policy as subordinate to fiscal, essentially using monetary policy as a broom to sweep the mess created by fiscal side. So essentially the point is that it's the fiscal recklessness or irresponsibility that creates unsustainable debt. It's not the monetary. Okay, it's not the monetary, but of course, at some point you can see how the monetary also comes in. And okay, so when somebody sings the song, the others have to dance to it. Okay, all right. Let me make this submission. Our underdevelopment is not because we have not generated enough tax revenue. That is not true. That's not true. In fact, other countries on similar economic fundamentals like Ghana from independence, like Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, actually developed, not because they were able to raise their tax to GDP ratio high that much. No. They developed through least cost approach and efficiency in expenditure. And that is the problem that we have with the IMF. Anytime Ghana visited the IMF, diagnosis is that we are not generating enough revenue. So go and generate more what? Revenue. But we have not spent time, and I believe that as CSOs, we need to also spend time and look at expenditure efficiency. Without that, we can generate as much tax revenue as we want to generate. The development will not come. If you look at Ghana's budget, I'm not digressing, it's part of academic life. If you look at Ghana's budget and you look at budgetary allocation to the road sector, road construction, not just from the central government. If you look at Cocoa Board and the others, in fact, some of these state-owned enterprises preside over a budget a sector minister would not even have an idea of. Okay? And sometimes it's better to be a CEO, I hope you understand that, of some of these state-owned enterprises than being a sector minister. Of course, certain ministries, okay, like Ministry of Fish, go to the sea. I hope you understand that. Okay, so they command substantial budget that they operate with. So if you look at our road stock on paper, budgetary allocations across, is very huge. But when you go out there, you will not see the roads. You know why? They are in people's stomach. Anytime we are on our own, we preside over weak debt management practice. That is what we do. And there isn't much transparency. Beyond that, we also adopt other creative measures. Let's call them creative, not innovative. Okay, creative aligns more with creative accounting, window dressing. Okay, we adopt other creative measures of managing our debts where we collateralize the debt. Okay, and even christen some of them as barter arrangements. But when you lift the veil, it comes down to what? To debt and all of that. And especially one of the institutions that has been identified over the years for this has to do with Cocoa Board. Then we've also noticed that with ECG and state-owned enterprises, the losses that they accommodate over the years also represents debt on the state, on the taxpayer. And that is why, as part of the measures or the debt sustainability analysis and debt management framework under the current IMF-supported program, for the first time in a long while, we've had to make a budget line in our public finance and call that one other expenditure. Okay, what we call other expenditure some time ago wasn't there. You can check if you track it. What do we call other expenditure now? We call it other expenditure now to cater for the inefficiencies and the losses coming from state-owned enterprises. Because we were treating these losses and arrears and all of that as off-balance sheets. So, for instance, ECG would accumulate debt, arrears, and ultimately the state has to step in and resolve that. Now we make budgetary provision for that. So if you check the 2025 budget, we have allocated as much as 33-point-something billion Ghana cedis to other expenditure to cater for the inefficiencies and other commitment of state-owned enterprises.
I just want to thank you for coming and also to say that we believe this is a very good resource and a timely resource for the issues that we are discussing around debt. So I want to launch this report, which is the Sustainable Debt Management in Ghana. Today, what date?
Today is 10th.
Okay, today, 10 July 2025. This report is launched in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But it's about what we use the report for. So we create this fanfare about launching, but we want to see, especially our journalists, if you can take this report as a good resource, a minefield of information, so that you can churn out stories around it, to provoke discussion, to influence the agenda. I think that is, for me, will serve a best purpose than just having a writer to say, EGP launched this report. It will not help the citizens. We have the ability to educate the citizens, raise awareness, and also help them to understand what the issues are. Recently, I was talking about the fact that the media stand best to influence our public agenda in terms of the issues they bring, especially when we have a duopoly of politicians who are navigating between NDC and NPP, and they are telling us is half empty or half full. If we don't get the media to play that independent role of giving us the information in a way that citizens can understand and appreciate, we'll have a lost cause. So I want to plead with our journalists, please, for the first time, I don't want to see a launch report. Let's give people a bit more. And that's why, for me, I'm happy it's a virtual, a soft copy.
Yeah.
So it's easy for you to look at it. And then after here, don't come and ask me today, program, it is saying, the Econ is saying, no. Please, let's talk about the issues. In fact, when the Prof was doing his presentation, I was just sitting out there and asking myself, these issues Prof has raised, he didn't start raising them today. But it's like we are not changing. Why are we not changing? It's because we are also not putting pressure. So we have a good opportunity to influence the current discussion in terms of what we do. So help us, the journalists, influence the agenda and also make a positive change in Ghana's development. Thank you very much.